This concludes our action items. We now go to item 19-241, non-agenda speakers. Our first speaker is Elvira Johnson Williams, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, and citizens of Portsmouth. Normally, I speak from my heart, but tonight I want to read something. And these are not my words, by the way. These words come from council members. I'm not attacking, I'm just repeating their words to them. These words were spoken at a council meeting on January 8th, 2013, concerning non-agenda speakers. And on that day, and 42 minutes and 52 seconds into the video that I was looking at, Councilwoman Elizabeth Simmons said, "I'd like to remind my council colleagues and citizens about our rules of order and procedures as amended on December 13th of 2011 with regard to non-agenda speakers. In section 5, it reads, decorum and no other language or conduct detrimental to the function of the meeting shall be permitted. The presiding officer shall maintain the dignity of the meeting."
Point of order, Mayor. Ma'am, Councilman Moody is asking me to determine whether or not this is a personal attack. I hope it's not.
It's not a personal attack.
Please refrain from identifying members of council if you would, so it won't be construed to be a personal.
As long as I don't say their name,
Please.
okay, that's fine. Still came from council members. The presiding officer shall maintain the dignity of the meeting to preserve decorum and order, and shall call out of order any person violating these rules of order and procedure. Applause shall be permitted only during awards and presentations. During all other agenda items, the speaker may request an expression of consensus, support, or opposition by calling for a show of hands for members of the audience to silently stand. No citizen shall be permitted to make personal attacks or accusations against any other citizen. The presiding officer shall decide all the questions, whether or not it be up for debate, which will be subject to the appeal of the council by any member. Therefore, a question will take precedence over the questions given to rise at it. The chief of police or his designee shall act as sergeant-at-arms at all city council meetings. The sergeant-at-arms shall, under the direction of the presiding officer, have charged council chambers and shall prevent any interruption of the business of council by disorder within or without. And I think if we follow this rule, we won't be in the conversation we're in right now. That was one council person. The second council person that spoke on this non-agenda thing was 46 minutes and 54 seconds into the meeting. They spoke to the mayor. No question, Mayor. I will say one thing. Nobody at home is watching this because the plug has already been pulled. In a body like this, silence indicates consent. I said earlier at the public works session, I don't agree with this. I think there are other ways, just like our council rules, as our other council member just read, that's how you control this board and people who want to unleash personal attacks. Also, Robert's Rules of Order and council's rules state that the mayor chairs the meeting and consequently has the gavel to call somebody out of order. It was pointed out earlier in that night that recently in Virginia Beach council member, a former elected official, who was out of order, apparently got removed from the council by the sergeant-at-arms. And this person also stated that he knows that the sergeant-at-arms here was very capable of removing anyone that needs to be removed. I think the reason why I read that, because like I said, it came from council members themselves. So there's a swinging door action going here in my personal opinion. It's okay for one person to do it, but it's not okay for the other person to do it. It's a disservice to us as citizens to not be able to have our voices heard. by this council or the people that are concerned about it. Because there are people that cannot make these city council meetings, and some of them just can't do it. And I think you need to reconsider, because it was quoted that you were considering it or reconsidering it. I'd like to thank you at this time, and have a blessed day.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Cliff Page. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mr. Mayor and Council, in the last 2 sessions, I've come before you all and discussed the issue in particular of the policies that government has been using to acquire properties outside of eminent domain, in particular blighting neighborhoods. I'm passing a letter over to the clerk, which I sent to the city manager on the 23rd of May and have not had a reply. As I understand it, she went out of town for the last month, and I have not had a reply from Mr. Paul and the assistant city manager either. I'd like to address a section of this to you in particular. The property we're talking about is what I've spoken about previously at other meetings, which is 1121 High Street, which is the old Evans Electric, Chesbay Auto. During the summer of 2018, economic development permitted large groups of individuals to gather on their property in the 1100 block of their parking lot. These individuals, by the 26th of September, had grown to a continuous, loud, and obnoxious mob with boomboxes of approximately 35 persons, male and female. Some were vagrants, most were dealing or using hard drugs, which were hawked and sold to other individuals. Economic Development's property had become the place to get hard drugs and party in Portsmouth, which would where no one would bother you. Numerous expensive automobiles came and went all day and night, many repeat customers making several trips in a day. I witnessed dope transactions and individuals injecting themselves routinely. Fentanyl, heroin, crack was being sold and used. Very little liquor of any kind was seen. Individuals on unlicensed 49cc motor scooters came and went routinely. I reported to the police that these unlicensed motorbikes were the common means for drug mules to move their product undetected from one side of the community to the other. The police did nothing, but occasionally run off these folks. This property was becoming an institutional block party for hard drugs. Economic Development did nothing to protect their property, but their lack of action encouraged blight to the neighborhood. My neighbor, the minister of the True Vine Pentecostal Church at Queen and Primrose, noted her concern to me and her frustrations at the condition was impacting on her services and the safety of her congregation and their vehicles. I witnessed elderly members of her church being verbally assaulted for no reason or cause by the lawless and dangerous revelers. The situation continued and grew, and I noted to the police that Economic Development was promoting a gross public nuisance. I advised the police that they needed to focus their attention on the source of the problem, economic development, which was not policing their own property, but encouraging blight to justify future demolition. I pointed out that they were not maintaining their landscaping and it needed to be addressed and the grounds kept clean. My property was being infested with vermin in large numbers because of the environmental conditions caused by this negligence. I specifically pointed out that the unattended shrubs needed to be pruned and that the trees need to be specifically be trimmed and allow for better visibility. One tree was pointed out as a candidate for removal. I noted that the landscaping had gone through design review and could not be altered without plan review and permission, but that this one tree could be removed and it has grown up on its own accord at the curb. Opening up the foliage for better light would reduce the shade and so on. I checked with the Economic Development and other departments in the city. Economic Development told me they had no permits, but that they were going to demolish the property. Planning, engineering, environmental inspections did not issue permits. And furthermore, across the street at Mary Jane Bakery, a landscape permit has been issued by engineering, but not the other departments. This is abusive and it is tyrannical for a government to allow this, and I have not had a response from the city manager in this regard. Her departments are in violation of the law, and I have brought this attention to your attention in other meetings. This is a violation of federal law, it's a violation of state law, it is a violation of the city code. This is a historic district I live in, and abutting properties must
Sir,
be
your time is
addressed.
up.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And please pass that on to
Thank you, sir.
Police Chief.
Our next speaker is Robert Volk, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mark, 2 years ago, I addressed the city council concerning bus stop shelters for the children. I was instructed that that concern should go to the school board. But I found out the school board, I went to them, they did nothing about it. So I found out that the school board recommended that the children, parents buy clothing for the children to wear when the weather's inclement or whatever. But the issue belongs to the city and not the school board. The school board deals with the children once they get on the bus and at school. Once they get off the bus, they belong to the city. We all are talking a lot about climate change, and we see that the climate is changing, and the children are taking a pounding now when it rains. Even Navy Federal has recently put up a shelter around their ATM machine. So I think the city, I've talked to several businesses, Kroger, Walmart, but because I'm not a 501c3 nonprofit organization, they can't give me money to have these projects done. But the city should find a way to talk to these businesses and build some school bus shelters, because the children that are in low-income housing, when they get to the bus stop and it's raining, they are forced to stand on some people's porches. And if they stand on somebody's porch that's not warranted, it's a problem. So I think the city should partner up with this, businesses that want to do something. School bus shelters are cheap. HRT got shelters for their patrons. So we should at least have shelters for the children of the city of Portsmouth. It's not that expensive, and it needs to be done. When the children get to school, if their clothes are wet, they don't have the opportunity to go and change clothes. They don't have the opportunity to do nothing to get out of those wet clothes, and they still have to perform at school. Who can perform in wet clothing? Who? Nobody. We shouldn't ask our children to do that. But the least we can do is get some shelters built for these children while they are at the bus stop. And the weather that we are seeing now is way worse than when I came with this issue 2 years ago. Way worse. And I think you guys have the power to talk to businesses and get some school bus shelters built for the children. And I'll say no more. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Dr. Patton, would you have the appropriate Deputy City Manager meet with Mr. Hall, please? Our next speaker is Charlotte Scott. And ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, people, and Portsmouth residents, citizens. I was here at the last council meeting, and only 5 minutes is not enough to speak on all that is involved in the environment what's going on with the environment in the city of Portsmouth. And it's been going on for a very, very, very long time. I'm 74, I will be 75, and it was in existence when I grew up. As I said before, we applaud the state of Virginia for properly addressing the residents' concern for the health hazardous mold ordeal existing within the military housing. No one should have to live under those conditions, especially after notification to the accountable parties. However, we need to let you know, not just the state of Virginia, but we need to let the city of Portsmouth know as well. I've talked with several council people and administrators in this area, and they say that they've never heard, they don't know anything about a lead contamination in this area. So, as of now, the people for environmental justice and the people against environmental racism is putting the city of Portsmouth on notice. There is a life-threatening mold ordeal as well as a chronic inherent lead and other deadly toxin emissions being released, some in very close proximity to the dwellings in the area in Newtown. By non-compliant industrial businesses into the very air we breathe and the water we drink. This throughout 23704 zip code, which consists of low-income, fixed-income, predominantly Black families, indigenous within the civilian, private home owners, and public housing communities of Portsmouth for over 60 years. This has created an unsafe, unhealthy, much sickness, many deaths, unfit for human residential living conditions. We have much concern for our children, childbearing age women, men, and senior residents. For years, in this neighborhood, there has existed Hope Village, established for the mothers-to-be and young working mothers with small children. Effingham Street high-rise for senior citizens and low-income housing complex named Southside Gardens, all of which are located right outside the Shipyard 7th Street gate. It is like we have been offered up to the chief source of employment as sacrifice to the industrial gods. Most severe impact is in what remains of Madison Ward, I call around the tower, and is well known as Newtown as well. The neighborhood next to the non-compliant Norfolk Naval Shipyard and several other industrial businesses. Should residential and industrial businesses be combined in the same community? Does it have to be the Black community only that's housed there?
And your time is up. Dr. Patton, would you have the appropriate deputy meet with Mrs. Our speaker, please?
Scott?
Scott.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda. This meeting is adjourned.
Hi, Miss Scott. How are you?